You are standing in the torchlit corridors of the Palatine Palace. The marble beneath your feet is cold, far colder than it should be, because this is not a hallway anymore. It is a hunting ground. Behind you, someone whispers a name. Not yours, but you know that if Caligula speaks it, your life as you once knew it will end. Outside, Rome celebrates the emperor as a god. Inside, every woman, noble or lowborn, lives a single prayer. Let him forget I exist tonight. Because under Caligula, beauty was a curse. Marriage was not a shield. And being Roman did not make you safe. There were whispers that what he did to the women of Rome was worse than death. And soon you will understand why. You are walking to Forum on a morning when the sun gilds every marble statue in gold. The air smells of warm bread, crushed olives, and wet stone. Rome buzzes with the illusion of peace. Vendors shouting, mothers haggling, priests chanting soft prayers to goddesses who were supposed to protect them. This Rome believes in order. It believes in power wrapped in ritual, in the safety of hierarchy, in the purity of noble families. Most of all, it believes that women of status cannot be touched. They are raised like living statues, bathed in rose oil, adorned in silk, taught to speak softly and walk with grace, as if refinement alone could protect them. Wives of senators move through the streets knowing eyes follow them, but always respectfully. Sons of wealthy households lower their gaze in reverence. Even soldiers step aside, because Rome has rules. Unspoken, ironclad rules. And then comes the day the city gathers to greet its new emperor. Gaius Caesar, Caligula, the young ruler who promises golden days, tax relief, games, festivals, a return to the glory of Julius Caesar himself. Women watch from balconies and shaded courtyards as he passes. At first, they whisper about his beauty, his youth, his strangely gentle smile. There is no reason yet to fear him. Not today. He enters the palace like a new sun rising. Rome breathes out, finally, as though the years of Tiberius' cruelty are ending. But no one sees the tremor beneath Caligula's soft footsteps. No one notices the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. No one hears the quiet crack inside his mind. The goddess illusion still stands, bright, serene, unbroken. But the first shadow has already slipped across its surface. Rome just doesn't know it yet. At first, Caligula gives Rome everything it begged for. He releases prisoners. He gifts money to the poor. He promises to honor the gods and restore dignity. He smiles at the crowds with a warmth no emperor has shown in decades. Women admire him from a distance. Some even feel a dangerous, innocent hope. Maybe he will be the emperor who respects us again. At feasts he is polite. He praises the beauty of senators' wives without crossing lines. He bows playfully to young noble women, making them blush. He laughs with their fathers, praises their husbands, and comments on their jewelry with unnatural delicacy. If a woman's hand trembles when she pours him wine, he reassures her gently. If she lowers her eyes, he tells her not to fear. If she tries to walk away quickly, he thanks her with surprising grace. Rome breathes easier. People tell each other, he is kind, he is safe. He is nothing like the monster Tiberius was. But behind the silk curtains of the palace, small things begin to fracture. Caligula asks for the names of every noble woman in Rome, their ages, their marital status, their family wealth, their perceived beauty. He instructs his attendants to note which women flinch when he speaks, which look away, which seem nervous. He begins walking the palace halls at night, barefoot, quiet as a predator. His servants whisper that he sometimes stops outside guest rooms, just listening, not entering. Not yet. He studies people the way a child studies insects before tearing off the wings. Still, Rome sleeps peacefully. Still, women wear their finest dresses to banquets. Still, fathers promise their daughters that the emperor is noble, safe, honorable. But Caligula's charm isn't a gift. It's bait. And every woman who steps near him is already caught. They just don't feel the jaws closing yet. It begins quietly. A senator's wife, well-known, elegant, respected, leaves a palace feast early. She walks through the torchlit corridor with her head high, pretending she isn't trembling. She tells her attendants She simply feels tired. No one questions her. But the next morning, she does not speak. Not even to her husband. She sits in their atrium, staring at the water in the fountain as if it holds a memory of something she's trying not to recall. Her makeup is untouched. Her lips are pale. Her hands shake when she lifts her cup. Her husband asks gently what happened. She flinches. Later that day, another woman, barely 16, refuses to return to the palace for the next banquet. Her mother locks the door and tries to console her. The girl curls up, sobbing silently, repeating the same words. He looked at me. He looked right through me. Rumors ripple, but quietly, like cracks forming beneath marble. And then there is the third woman, the one who doesn't come home at all. Her family waits all night. At dawn, a guard knocks on her door, delivering a message in a tone as cold as iron. The emperor requests her presence again tonight. Requests, but no one refuses an emperor. Rome's illusion begins to crumble. Not in the streets, not publicly, but inside kitchens, bedrooms, women's chambers where whispers tremble like candle flames. Mothers clutch their daughters tighter. Husbands look at their wives differently. Fearful, powerless. The goddess statues in the temples suddenly feel hollow. Their marble eyes stare blankly at prayers they can no longer answer. Because slowly, painfully, Rome realizes the truth. Caligula does not admire women. He hunts them. And tonight, many will lie awake, wondering if their name will be the next one whispered on the emperor's lips. The invitations arrive like small daggers, thin parchment, red wax. The emperor's seal pressed too deeply, as if the sender's hand was trembling with excitement or cruelty. In Rome, an invitation from Caligula is not read. It is obeyed. As night falls, carriages roll toward the Palatine Palace. Inside them, noble women sit in silks that feel suddenly too heavy, too loud, too bright. Every color looks like a target. Every jewel feels like bait. The palace glows with hundreds of torches, their flames bending as if trying to lean away from what waits inside. You step into Great Hall and immediately feel the shift. The air is thick with scented smoke, honeyed wine, and something colder, sharper. Fear hiding behind painted smiles. Musicians play too softly, like they are afraid the notes might offend him. Caligula lounges on a reclined couch in the center of the room, draped in purple. His eyes drift across the hall not with admiration, not even with lust, but with the detached curiosity of man deciding which animal to dissect first. Women bow. Men force laughter. Slaves tremble while pouring wine. The feast begins, but no one eats. Plates of figs and roasted meat sit untouched, shining under the lamplight like offerings to a hungry god. Caligula raises a cup. The hall falls silent. Even the torches seem to hold their breath. He speaks warmly, almost playfully, thanking Rome for its loyalty, its beauty, its daughters. The words are sweet. The tone is gentle. But every woman feels the same invisible hand close around her throat, not choking, not squeezing, simply reminding her that it could. And then, slowly, deliberately, the palace doors swing shut behind you. The echo is soft, but it sounds like the end of something. The music resumes, but it no longer sounds human. Each note quivers as if trembling for its life. Caligula rises from his couch and begins to walk, not toward anyone in particular, but through the hall, drifting like a shadow deciding where to settle. Women lower their eyes. Men straighten their backs, pretending not to see the panic bleeding through the seams of their composure. He moves slowly, savoring the silence his footsteps carve into the room. A noble woman beside you clenches her fan so tightly that the ribs snap. She hides the broken pieces under her sleeve, but you saw the moment her hope cracked like thin wood. Caligula stops, not in front of the most beautiful woman, not the youngest, not the one wearing gold. He chooses unpredictability. That is the terror. He asks names. He comments on fabrics. He praises a hairstyle. He laughs at a nervous gesture. Each small courtesy feels like a test. Each question is a blade disguised as conversation. Then he dismisses the musicians with a flick of his hand. The hall goes quiet. Servants appear at his side. They do not speak. They only wait for a signal. Barely a nod, a glance, a movement of his wrist. And with terrifying efficiency, they approach certain women, whispering that the emperor wishes to see them privately. There is no refusal. There is no safety in numbers. There's only the moment you pray the whisper passes you by. But every woman knows the truth. Whether chosen tonight or another night, the palace has already marked them. One woman sinks to her knees after the servant walks away, her breath shaking, her eyes unfocused. Her husband tries to lift her, but she doesn't respond. Another quietly vomits behind a pillar, wiping her mouth before anyone can see. From a balcony above, senators watch with stone faces. Men who once boasted about Rome's strength now rendered powerless in their finest robes. This is not a feast. It is a silent lottery. And tonight, luck is the rarest commodity in Rome. When the palace doors finally open again, the moon has shifted across half the sky. Women walk out in pairs, or alone, or not at all. Torches flicker along the road, illuminating faces drained of color. Some weep quietly inside their carriages. Some stare straight ahead, hollow. Some grip their shawls around their shoulders as if trying to hold themselves together. Rome waits in the dark for its daughters to return. In noble houses, mothers pace the floors like trapped animals. Sisters kneel in prayer, their hands shaking. Men attempt to appear strong, but their eyes betray them, wide, frantic, full of a guilt they cannot name and cannot escape. The first rumors spread before sunrise. A servant girl whispers about the emperor's laughter. A guard swears he heard someone pleading. A cook says she saw a noble woman carried out with her hair undone, her face empty of everything she once was. The stories change from house to house, but one truth stays the same. Something happened in the palace tonight. Something that cannot be spoken. Something that will happen again. Women who were summoned do not describe what occurred. They speak only in fragments. I couldn't breathe. He wouldn't let me look away. Please don't make me go again. Rome tries to pray louder, tries to pretend longer, tries to hold on to the illusion that the gods are watching. But every family that received an invitation knows the reality. Caligula has begun choosing, and once the emperor has chosen, he does not stop. The illusion of safety is dead. And Rome, for the first time in generations, learns what it means to fear nightfall. There was a time when marriage in Rome was armor. A woman could walk to the forum with her husband at her side, confident that no man, emperor or not, would dare cross the invisible boundary drawn by honor. But under Caligula, honor becomes ash. The first scandal erupts not in a dark chamber, but in the Senate itself. Caligula arrives late, wearing a smirk sharp enough to cut marble. The senators stand, bowing deeply, their togas trembling at the edges. He strolls between them, tapping shoulders, greeting them by name as if they were schoolboys instead of the most powerful men in the empire. Then he stops beside a senator known for his loyalty, a devoted husband, a man whose wife is praised for her grace and modesty. Caligula places a hand on the man's shoulder and says, loud enough for the entire chamber to hear, "You have excellent taste in women." The senator freezes. The room turns to stone. Everyone understands the message. It spreads like poison through Rome. Caligula is no longer satisfied, choosing women quietly. He is choosing them publicly, brazenly, as a sport, and husbands can do nothing, because refusing the emperor is treason. Protecting one's wife is disobedience. Showing distress is suspicion. So men sit in their courtyards after sunset, staring at the mosaic floors while their wives cry behind closed doors. Some demand their wives remove all ornaments. No more jewels. No gold. No braids. Don't attract attention. Some forbid them from attending banquets. It's safer if you stay inside. But safety is an illusion, and they know it. Caligula's power is a net woven over the entire city, and every household, no matter how noble, wealthy, or ancient, feels the threads tightening. Marriage becomes not a sanctuary, but a spotlight. One evening, Caligula hosts a banquet where he orders all married couples to sit together. On the surface, it looks like a gesture of respect for Roman family values. But nothing Caligula does is innocent. The room glitters with candles dripping slow tears of wax. The air smells of roasted lamb and fear. Women sit stiffly beside their husbands, their hands folded neatly in their laps like condemned prisoners awaiting a verdict. Caligula walks between the tables, greeting each couple with exaggerated warmth. You two look happy. Such loyalty. Admirable. A beautiful match. Truly. But his tone carries the mockery of a wolf praising sheep. At one table, he pauses beside a young bride. She is barely 18, newly married, her hair styled with fresh jasmine. Her husband beams with pride, until Caligula lifts her chin with a single finger, studying her face as if she were a piece of art he intends to steal. Then he laughs. A loud, cruel, delighted laugh. So this is your wife? I see why you guard her so closely. The husband's smile shatters. The bride's breath stumbles. Everyone at the table goes silent. For the rest of the night, Caligula returns to the couple again and again, commenting on her dress, her posture, her voice. Each remark strips away another layer of dignity, until she sits trembling, unable to swallow even a sip of wine. By the time the feast ends, every married woman in the room understands a lesson. Caligula does not merely violate people. He violates the concept of marriage itself. He wants every husband to feel powerless, every wife to feel exposed, every union to feel breakable. And Rome begins to learn something far more frightening than cruelty. Caligula is not unstable. He is deliberate. What happens to a city when marriage, the core of family, lineage, honor, loses its meaning? It begins quietly. A husband walks 3 steps behind his wife instead of beside her, afraid someone will misinterpret a gentle touch. Another grows suspicious, interrogate his wife after every palace banquet, desperate for answers she cannot give. Some men hire guards to watch their own homes at night, pretending the threat might come from anywhere except the palace itself. Walls grow thicker, doors slam harder, whispers sharpen like knives. Rome becomes a city where husbands no longer trust fate or their emperor or themselves. Meanwhile, the women begin to retreat into silence, not because they want to, but because there is no safe way to speak. A woman summoned to the palace cannot tell her husband why. She returns pale and shaking. A girl who avoids eye contact with the emperor cannot explain her terror without endangering her entire family. A wife who tries to run is dragged back by fear stronger than chains. And so they endure, quietly, painfully, carrying secrets that feel heavier than stone. The most tragic change happens behind closed doors. Husbands begin to view their wives with the same fear the wives feel for the emperor. Not distrust, not anger, but helpless terror. The knowledge that they cannot protect the person they love most. And in this emotional vacuum, marriages wither. Laughter fades from Roman homes. Music stops. Children grow up watching their mothers cry into their shawls, and their fathers stare helplessly at empty walls. Caligula doesn't need to break Rome with weapons. He breaks it with shame. By turning love into liability, he reshapes the entire empire into a place where no bond is safe, no union sacred, no promise unbroken. Marriage, once the strongest fortress in Rome, becomes its weakest door, and Caligula walks through it whenever he pleases. It begins with proclamation nailed to the bronze gates of the Forum, a place normally reserved for military decrees and tax policies. But today, the parchment carries something far darker. Citizens gather slowly, forming a half-circle around the notice. Some squint, some gasp, some look away as if the words themselves burn their eyes. Caligula announces a public display of Rome's finest maidenhood, a spectacle, a celebration, a financial opportunity. In other words, an auction, not of horses, not of land, but of young noble women unmarried, some barely out of childhood, displayed like rare artifacts to be priced before the emperor's throne. The city freezes. Mothers clutch their daughters by the wrist, pulling them away. Fathers read and reread the decree, hoping they've misunderstood. Slaves whisper prayers under their breath, the kind reserved for storms and plagues. Rome has seen brutality before, but what Caligula does next is not brutality. It is humiliation dressed as entertainment. Rumors rise like smoke. He wants to see how much each girl is worth. He wants the men to bid so he can watch them squirm. If you don't bid, he'll mark you as disloyal. If you bid too high, he'll punish you for being ambitious. There's no winning this game, only surviving it. In noble homes across the city, doors slam, locks click, daughters are hidden behind curtains and under floorboards as if secrecy could erase their existence. But the emperor's messengers roam the streets with lists, names written in harsh ink, chosen without pattern, without mercy, without explanation. The chosen families receive sealed summons. No one refuses. No one argues. As night falls, Rome trembles with the newest truth Caligula has carved into its heart. A girl's innocence can now be traded, and the bids will be made with fear. The next day, the Palatine Palace transforms into something unholy. Silk curtains hang like execution banners. Perfumed smoke coils through the air, sweet at first, then nauseating, disguising the scent of dread. Senators gather on raised platforms, their faces covered in layers of dignity that crack the moment they step inside. The hall is silent, too silent, until Caligula enters. He is joyous, radiant, almost childlike in his delight. To him, the event is not monstrous. It is theater. The girls are brought forward one by one, draped in modest garments that do not hide their trembling. Some keep their eyes fixed on the ground. Others stare ahead, faces drained of color, try to slip into numbness the way soldiers do on the eve of battle. Caligula sits on a throne carved with lions, tapping his fingers as if bored between acts of a play. He comments on each girl. Lovely posture. Too shy. Fragile like glass. Her father will bid high, I think. Every remark is a knife sharpened with a smile. The senators do not speak at first. Their throats are tight. Their pride rots inside their chests. But Caligula demands bids, and silence is disobedience. A trembling voice calls out the first offer, too low, but spoken only to avoid punishment. Another senator follows, then another, each raising the price not to win the girl, but to avoid the emperor's displeasure. The room becomes a carnival of forced enthusiasm. Some men's hands shake so violently they drop their wax tablets. Others wipe sweat from their brows, as if burning under invisible flames. A few break down entirely, unable to raise their voices. Caligula laughs at them. He laughs and applauds as if they are performers in a comedy written for his pleasure. And the girls, silent, shaking, become props in a nightmare that Rome will pretend never happened. When the auction ends, the palace doors open, but freedom does not follow. The girls are escorted out not as daughters, but as items that have been priced, appraised, evaluated under the emperor's gaze. Their worth reduced to numbers shouted by desperate, terrified men. Some families rush to them, covering them with cloaks, shielding their faces from crowd. Others cannot bear the shame and hang back, frozen, hollow. One mother collapses to the floor, sobbing into her hands. A father stares at his daughter as if seeing someone who returned from war. A brother grips his sister so tightly she winces, but she does not pull away. His arms are the first safe place she has felt all day. As the carriages depart, silence blankets Rome. A silence too thick, too heavy. That evening, the city does not eat. No music plays. No laughter echoes in courtyards. The bakeries do not open at dawn. The temples remain dim. Every household marked by the emperor's summons becomes quieter, darker, colder. Doors stay locked. Curtains remain drawn. Conversations take place in whispers, as though the walls themselves might betray them. Some girls do not speak at all. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not for many days after. Others cry until their voices fade into hoarse gasps. Some sit in corners, hands clasped around their knees, rocking gently, creating rhythm where their world lost all structure. But the deepest scar spreads through Rome's soul. Men walk with their heads down, shamed by their own helplessness. Women cover their hair and avoid sunlight, as if the sky itself is watching with accusation. Even children sense the shift and speak softer. Rome has always feared war. It has feared famine, disease, invaders. But this new terror is quieter, more intimate, a poison that seeps into every home, every bed, every whispered prayer. Because for the first time in its history, Rome realizes The emperor is not merely cruel. He enjoys watching Rome break. And nothing, not law, not marriage, not innocence, stand between him and his entertainment. Rome had learned a strange new rhythm under Caligula, a rhythm built not on days and nights, but on moods. On this night, the city felt different. The wind moved through the narrow alleys like something nervous, brushing against closed doors and shuttered windows. Lanterns glowed dimly behind curtains, never fully extinguished, as if the people of Rome feared true darkness more than sleeplessness. And in every district, people whispered. Women whispered about who had been summoned last. Men whispered about what punishment had been carried out that morning. Parents whispered to daughters not to draw attention, not to dress too brightly, not to wander alone. Servants whispered rumors, each worse than the last. Even the palace guards whispered. They stood at their posts outside the Palatine gates, armor gleaming under torchlight, eyes fixed forward but minds locked in fear. They had seen too much. They knew too much. The marble columns behind them were beautiful, but they were also witnesses, silent, cold witnesses, to everything that had unfolded inside. Tonight, something stirred deeper than fear. A tension, a waiting, a dread that seemed to rise from the very stones of the city. And at the center of it, inside the palace, Caligula stood by the balcony, watching Rome as if it were a trembling animal. He smiled. The emperor's private chambers were dim, lit only by a few golden lamps that cast long shadows across the walls. The silence was unnerving. Thick, heavy, almost deliberate. Caligula walked slowly across the room, trailing his hand along a table carved with scenes of the gods. He liked the gods. He liked them better when he felt superior to them. On the table lay dozens of scrolls, reports, accusations, confessions real, forced, or imagined. He had spies in every household, in every market, in every corner of the empire. He knew secrets no emperor had ever bothered to collect before. Secrets gave him power. Secrets fueled his imagination. Secrets kept Rome obedient. As he unrolled a fresh scroll, his expression sharpened. He read every word with fascination, as if unwrapping a personal gift. A senator's wife had spoken too boldly. A merchant's daughter had refused a summons. A slave had tried to escape the palace grounds. Caligula murmured, "People forget. I hear everything." He closed the scroll with a calm, fluid motion. Someone would pay for the things written inside, not because the offense was unforgivable, but because punishment must never feel predictable. It was unpredictability that kept Rome awake at night. It was unpredictability that kept him entertained. Not far from the palace, 3 women sat in a quiet room illuminated by a single clay lamp. They had not met by choice. They had not spoken by choice. They were bound by a simple truth. Each of them had been summoned at least once, and each had lived to return home. Livia, barely 20, kept twisting the ring on her finger, her wedding ring, a symbol that had failed to protect her from anything. Sabina sat straight-backed, silent, holding the edge of her shawl like a lifeline. And Marcia, the oldest among them, stared at the doorway as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. They shared their stories in broken pieces, never naming details that were too painful. "I keep hearing footsteps at night," Livia whispered. "I think he will call me again." "He doesn't need a reason," Sabina replied softly. "He only needs a moment." Marcia's voice trembled when she finally spoke. "It isn't the summons that terrifies me," she said. "It is waking up each morning wondering if today will be the day my name is whispered again." Outside, a chariot rolled past on a cobblestone street. All 3 women flinched. In any other time, Rome was a city that sparkled at night, a place of feasts, laughter, poetry, and life. But under Caligula, Rome had become a city of whispers, a city that feared sleep, a city that feared dawn, a city that feared the sound of its own emperor's footsteps. Tomorrow, someone new would be summoned. Someone new would disappear behind palace walls. And Rome would wait again, breathless, helpless, silent. The palace felt wrong that evening. Not dangerous. Danger was expected, constant, almost ordinary. No, this was different. The servants sensed it first. They moved through the marble corridors with quieter steps than usual, casting nervous glances toward the Emperor's private wing. Something in the air was heavier, thicker, like humidity before a storm. The Praetorian guards were uneasy as well. They stood at their posts with rigid backs, hands resting too tightly on their spears. Even their commander, Marcus Aquila, a man known for a face that never betrayed fear, shifted his weight restlessly. He had served under Tiberius. He had faced rebellions, ambushes, assassination attempts. None of that had unnerved him the way Caligula's silence did tonight. No shouting, no laughter, no orders, just silence. Inside the great hall, the torches flickered, struggling against a strange draft, as if the palace itself was holding its breath. Something was coming, but no one, absolutely no one, knew what. Caligula sat alone on the lion-carved throne, not the grand throne he used for ceremonies, but the smaller, intimate seat in his private judgment chamber, a room meant for decisions that would never appear in official records. His eyes were fixed on a bronze mirror across the room. The reflection looking back at him was almost unfamiliar, pale, restless, burning with a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. For days, he had sensed something slipping. Obedience was still there, fear was still there, but the edge, the sharp, unpredictable terror that made Rome tremble, was fading. People had begun whispering instead of screaming, hoping instead of breaking, surviving instead of surrendering. He could not allow that. He rose from the throne with slow, deliberate steps. His sandals echoed through the chamber, the sound hard and cold. Rome forgets quickly, he said to himself. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. From up here, the lamps looked like faint stars scattered across the streets. Too calm, too quiet. Fear needed to be renewed. Tonight, he would create a memory Rome could not silence, a message Rome would not forget, a reminder of who held absolute power over their lives, their families, their breath. He whispered, "Let them tremble again." Then he called for the guards. Commander Marcus Aquila entered the chamber with a controlled stride, bowing deeply. "You sent for me, Caesar?" Caligula didn't turn. He kept his gaze upon the city outside, his voice low but sharp. "Bring her," he said. Aquila's breath caught, though he hid it well. "Which one, Caesar?" Caligula finally turned, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling fire. The senator's daughter. Aquila stiffened. Everyone in the palace had heard of her, a young woman known not for beauty or status, but for something far more dangerous: integrity. She had once spoken against cruelty in the Senate gallery, her voice calm, measured, fearless. A rare act, a foolish act, a memorable act. Even more dangerous, she had rejected Caligula's first summons weeks ago. Aquila felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Caesar, she is heavily guarded in the Senate." "The Senate," Caligula interrupted, "is a collection of frightened old men waiting to die. Bring her." Aquila hesitated. Only for a second. It was enough. Caligula's head tilted, eyes narrowing with predatory amusement. "Do you refuse me?" The room went silent. "No, Caesar," Aquila said quietly. "I obey." He turned to leave, but Caligula spoke again. "And Marcus?" The commander froze. "Bring her," Caligula repeated, "even if Rome must burn for it." Aquila bowed his head. "As you command." He left the chamber, but every step felt heavier than the last. By dawn, all of Rome would know. Someone had defied the emperor, and the emperor had finally decided to respond. A night of fear was coming, a night no one would forget.